Why did Job lament? Why was he so sorrowful? And there, we know we're asking why, but before we do that, we just ask, what did he lament as he thinks about his situation? Okay, question done. This is where the poetry comes in, because yes, he cursed the day he was done. Do you have a special day in your life? What about your birthday? Is that a special day for you? Well, we have about 3 or 4 pages of stuff in my office where I know your birthday. Is that your day? Listen to the American Standard and Job 3 verse 1. After this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. Your translation probably doesn't have that, because what is his day? You have what? The date of his birth. The day of his birth. And as we look in these first 10 verses, he hits that day from so many facets. And you say, well, you shouldn't curse the day of your birth. Well, he does, because of the things that is happening. We're going to answer this question, why? But just dwell a moment in verse 3. Let the day perish wherein I was born. Okay, I was born. And then he doesn't stop there. What's the second part of that? Joe, you're not conceived after you're born. You told us you're born. What is that? How does that make you? What is that supposed to create in you? What's the poetry supposed to create? Is that not only curse the day I was brought out onto the knees of my mother or the midwife. I was not only cursing that day, but the night when they said, conception has happened. I cursed that time too. And it just shows you how extreme he feels about his situation. Where you wouldn't know that. I just cursed the day I was born, the day of my birth. The night in which there was a man-child conceived. Verse 6. As for that night, let their darkness seize upon it, and let not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year, and let it come into the number of the months. So here's the idea of the days of the year, that make up the days of the year. We got that. But let's just talk about how it's divided by months. That's how extreme my sorrow is. That's what I am suffering. That every facet connected with my day of my birth, from the conception, and you want to number it in years, and the days of the years. Let's look at it from the months too. Repetitive part in our day, we cut to the chase. And that's why I'm asking God to give us some patience. And we can't go through this all through our time allotted to us. But I hope when you study the book and you have the questions that you're to answer, spend some time of trying to soak up the feeling. And what happens is that this terminology takes it to all parameters, every facet connected with my birth. Days, months, the days of the years, months. Conception, birth. I curse it all. I curse it all. I want thick darkness. I want darkness and thick darkness. And let the stars, verse 9 of twilight, therefore be dark. Twilight, right in the evening, the stars are coming up. And let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it behold the eyelids of the morning. What's he talking about there? Eyelids of the morning? What did he just tell you? Yeah. Whether it's my eyelids, we're getting up in the morning, or whether it's the morning. So I've talked about the evening. when light is supposed to be coming up. It's, I don't care. I want to curse that time, and I also want to curse the morning. I don't want darkness. I don't want light to be even shining when the eyelids pop open. But no, we're too hurried. Let's go to the next question. And Job should not be studied that way, and yet we have to get through all of the chapters, you know. So I hope you will discipline yourself and reward yourself, because there's so much more we could talk about here, but every aspect of this, let the night be barren in verse 7, let no joyful noise come therein. Let it be barren, empty, loneliness, and there's no joy. And I tell you, that is a terrible place to be when you have no joy and you're by yourself. Now, verse 8 speaks about let them curse it, let them curse if that curse they that curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Now that's something we'd be curious, what is that? And we will see it again in Job, where it's a sea monster, crocodile. And Job will have both aspects to that when we get through that, to that part. But right here, he just names it. And so we can see that, but what we understand that during the time, remember when Balak wanted Balaam to curse the children of Israel? Put a curse on them. So he would use something like this of cursing the day I was born, rouse up the Leviathan, because it was understood that there was this great sea monster that would just eat sun and moon and stars, just gobble it up. And therefore curse the day by rousing up the Leviathan in the day of their time. They realized that here was a sea monster, here was somebody that in their culture, that someone would just rise up and swallow all the light and take it off. That's what he's talking about. He's hit it at so many angles. I don't like the day I was born. Why? Why? I just don't like it. I don't like it, and I don't like it. Because in verse 10, because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb. I think we understand that picture. That's a figure of speech. Never heard it said that way before. Now I know. Nor hid trouble from mine eyes. That's the why. Because what I had to begin to suffer is that because here was my beginning, even my conception, and brought down to the knees as the baby's delivered, seeing the light of day, receiving nourishment from the mother's breast. Life is there. And what was it? Man's life is fleeting and it's full of trouble. Full of trouble. What was his trouble at this time? He lost his children, lost his oxen, camels, lost his servants, lost his health. That's trouble, isn't it? Have you experienced things like that? Probably not to the same degree, but we have our troubles. But he's, therefore, whatever place I could find where I had a beginning, and he took 10 verses, and we take that and realize darkness can terrify and all those things. I wish I were shut up in all those things, because it brought about trouble for me. So he answers, I think, that in verse 10. Did you have another answer why he cursed the day of his conception, birth, opening of the door of the wombs? And here's what is ahead of me. And he doesn't have to go into details of that. We've already seen it in the first 2 chapters. So that becomes important. So anything you want to add to that? I'm just saying you will reward yourself. Nobody's going to look over your shoulder, so you didn't spend enough time on Job this week. But you will reward yourself if you give yourself time to study the book of Job with me. What why questions did Job ask in his lamenting? Where do you find those? Well, in our Bible studies, usually the question is going to answer the next passage of Scripture that you come to. And in my Bible, verses 11 and 12, why? So, Brother Fite may be meaning to answer that question. It's not too difficult to find out where I'm going to find my answer. Now I've got to study my Bible. Why did I not from the womb? Why died I not from the womb? Why did not I give up the ghost when my mother did what? Bear me. There's his why questions. He ties us in with this first 10 verses. Why did the knees receive me? We understand what's happened. Birth has taken place. Or why the breast that I should suck? Why? And what answer would you get? That's where we need discernment. That's right. And so if I'm going to be born, why did I die? Why didn't I just come forward and die? And he's going to be hitting on that. Why died I not from the womb? Why wasn't I stillborn, maybe? And he'll hit on that aspect of it. And why the breast that I should suck, the knees receive me. Why wasn't I stillborn? Why didn't I die so I don't have to face this trouble? And so he now goes to the next stage. He still is looking at, I wish I wasn't born, but if I'm going to come through the birth canal, I wish I were dead before my mother gives nourishment to me to live this life of trouble. It's happening there. And we may not, God doesn't answer him. And we may not know, but it's just like in my sorrow, why me? Why does this allow to happen? Because here's what my life is right now. And so I'm kind of maybe welcoming death. And then I've got to realize what connection, what unifies. There's 9 of them here. I didn't put all of them on the question. There's 9 types of people, 9 types of people we see upon this earth. And how would it relate? Kings, princes, wicked prisoners, untimely births have in common that Job desired for himself. What unites kings and wicked people, kings and untimely births, princes, counselors? And if you look at them there, the wicked, the weary, the prisoners, the small and the great and the servant, what do they all have in common that he wishes he had? Death. I heard it. Death. He looks at them, but look what they accomplished in life. What about those kings and counselors in verse 14 who built up waste places for themselves? What do the princes have? Oh, those privileged folks. Those privileged children, and they grow up, they have the gold. Who filled their house with silver. or as a hidden, untimely birth, I had not been. I was born dead. Untimely birth, what? They're dead. Infants that never saw the light. Those were, well, they're just 2 pounds and they came forth and we're going to keep them alive. No, stillborn, I never saw the light. There the wicked cease. What do they cease doing when they die? Yeah, they're not building up the kingdom. They're troubling it. And there the weary are what? At rest. What about the prisoners? They're putting on the chain gang. They're out there beating up rock. Prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of their what? Taskmasters. I don't care if you're a little peon in your society or you're the great leader. I don't care who this. And whether you're a servant. When you're a servant, you're free from your what? From your master. They all were accomplishing different things in life. But reality is that we all do what? Great or small, kings or paupers, we all die. And he said, I wish I were dead. Now we could just say that, but he sets forth the poetry that sets forth, here, you accomplish things in life. You're a wicked person, you trouble a lot of people. You did your thing. But I wish I were dead, because why? I'm lamenting. And if we just say he's just sad because of his trouble in his life, you don't feel it. You don't feel it until you absorb the poetry. We've got books of poetry in our Bibles. And we're able to absorb how he feels. And you might argue, well, it's better to be a king than a wicked person. And you could be a righteous king. Rather do that. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I wish they have, that I wish I had that they have, and that's they're dead. I don't care what they accomplished on this earth. We all die. And there's a great lesson there too. All different doing things, accomplishing things. I'm glad the wicked person's out of the way, because all he did was what? Trouble us. Yeah, that's good. But that counselor, along with that king, that counselor who guided me in my life, my mentor who guided me in that life, he's dead too, or she's dead. And he's just trying to show, I wish that were my situation. I was dead, because I would be at rest, I would be at peace. Now, we come along, and we might be a Jehovah's Witness, don't believe in hell, or we don't believe there's going to be an eternal punishment in hell. Was that on Job's mind right now? Don't know if he denied it, believed it. It's immaterial. This is how I feel. And when you take the time to see where a person's coming from and how they feel, you'll be able to be of help to them. That's why discerning, I have knowledge, but how do I apply that in that situation? That's what's so cruel and about what we're going to see from his friends. They got some truth, but they don't have all the answers, do they? And they think they do. Did his wife, how did she look at it? God's in control, and you've been serving him, Job, all of your days. Everybody knows it, especially your wife. And you need to curse God and die. Curse God? Job said, no way, I'm going to curse God. He giveth, taketh away. Blessed be the name of Jehovah. He does us good, babe. Why can't we accept the evil? And she wasn't willing to do that, because God is apparently turning his back on you, Job. Curse him. I won't curse God, but I sure do curse the day I was born. There's a man of integrity, not having all the answers, but he asks why. He says, I see this as something I would like to have an idea of be at rest. Verse 21, who long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than hid treasure. Why don't he need to commit suicide? He longs for it like treasure. He longs for it. He just dig it up to find out if he had it for treasure. But he wasn't going to commit suicide, was he? I think he knew. He didn't know God said, Satan, you can't have his life. We know that. That's just, there's a double strength that we have when we're thinking about coming back from war and all the difficulties that happen, and people see the problems that they're having. You see people, soldiers wanting to take their life. And need to take the time to understand where they're coming from, and people try to do that and they try to help them. But there comes a limit. I will not pull that trigger. And I will not, because God is the one that gives life. And I've got Job, and I may not have a big support group out here, but I've got Job, and I've realized that indeed I believe in God. That can get me through the difficult times, because Job is going to be blessed in the end. So if he doesn't bless me like he blessed Job, I'll still realize that I live life with integrity. I serve my country. I live life as a Christian. But this book would help us. That Job had every right from a secular standpoint to end it, and let's just give him an easy death. I mean, look what he went through. Does he long for it? Yes. It's not me to take. God giveth, and God taketh. Not just my possessions, but my life. And that will help us remain strong. And so, but see, don't rob yourself of how he feels. And don't judge him. What you mean, wicked person and king? Oh, wicked, they're going to hell. Yeah. But that's not his concern right now. And we will add this to our knowledge, and then maybe we can start trying to help people. We understand you can get pretty low, can't you, in life? And what makes you low may not make me low, but we can feel it. And I feel the darkness that he desires. I feel all of those things. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hedged in? I can't get out of this. You know, Satan said, you hedged him in because you won't hurt him. I can't get out of this. What I'm having to go through, I'm still living. My sighing cometh before I eat, and my groaning are poured out like water. I have hunger pains all the time, but I'm even groaning before, and these are great groanings. It's poured out like water. And the thing which I fear cometh upon me, and that which I'm afraid of cometh upon me. I'm not at ease, neither am I quiet. I'm not peaceful with my situation, neither have I rest. What's coming? Isn't that what we ask with the why questions? Why? And he knows why, because when my mother gave birth and life, trouble is coming. And it's coming as he closes this section of this particular. The first response that he has, and now he's going to have a conversation dealing with his friend, Elihu. Any questions or comments you might have on that? What complaint did Job have before God? You know, it's the fact that here I'm alive, I'm having to go through these things. I don't have the answers for those things. And and whom God hath hedged in, my sighing cometh before I eat. All those things are connected with that thought. That here, things that could be nice in nature, I'm not enjoying that. I have trouble. That's what I'm having. Not satisfaction of hunger, or all those things. Any thoughts? Yes, Theta? And it's so overwhelming that he can't rejoice with the mother who gave him birth in his innocence, can he? It's dark. It just shows how dark it is. I hope you never feel that way about your birthday. Yes, sir? Yeah. And if we could get focused in, why, God, are you so cruel? Why are you so cruel at this time? I'm not, that may be close to the question. I'm not saying that, but it's like, you got me hedged in. What good is light if I can't go anywhere with it? That's cruel. And there's the feeling. So we done some time with that, but I hope you'll do that throughout. We're not going to do that throughout every chapter, because you'll say, how have we been in Job? Well, 3.5 years. It's been great, hasn't it? We got to move on. We're living in different times. David? David, could you agree with me that we're learning the story of how he did become patient, what he went through to become one that's recognized by James, the patience of Job? This is just part of this is what something inflicted upon his life. He was a righteous man, all those things, but the patience comes when you are having to face the trouble. So we're learning how he became Job, the patient one. And he has his questions. He has his desires to die. He has all those things because I would escape my trouble. And he said, it's just a few boils. And we say, well, you can replace your house, but you can't, you lost your 10 children too. I mean, wherever he's going to have a good reason for lamenting, isn't he? And I know at the end, God chooses him to pray for the other fellows because they didn't have it right. But he sinned too, and we'll see how that happens. But at this time, he doesn't. Why was Eliphaz not sympathetic to Job's complaint? Then answered Eliphaz, the Temanite, which we are looking at this land of Uz in the northern part of the Persian Peninsula and so forth, sea and so forth there. We talked about that place. If one is say to commune with thee, wilt thou be grieved? Or who can withhold himself from speaking? What compliment does he make in the first part of verse 2? Does he give Job a compliment when he asks him that question? If one say to commune with thee, and like me, Eliphaz, I'm getting ready to commune with you, would you be what? I don't have time for you. Would you be grieved? Oh, here comes another question. And the point is, no, you wouldn't. I know that about you, Job. But I just got to talk. Well, you've been quiet for 7 days. And we talked about, I don't know what to say to you. Or I'm not going to say anything to you because you're a condemned man. Can't offer any comfort to you. Regardless, the Bible says they saw that his grief was very great, whether it's compassion or conviction, or maybe a little both. Because they don't know what to say, but he's going to spell out, almost like, how dare you? It seemed like you're questioning God, or at least saying he's cruel, and you're so far removed from God. Behold, thou hast instructed many, and thou hast strengthened the weak hands. You've done some good. That's some compliments. And the words have upholden him that was failing, and it says, and thou hast made firm the feeble knees. But now it is come unto thee, and you faint. If you faint in the time of trouble, your strength is no good. Is he getting ready to accuse him of that your trust and your faith is not strong enough? Whatever. I don't know. But could you learn some wisdom if you're going to cut somebody apart? Could you give him compliments before you do it? Could you try to get on his side that I'm not here to bring more grief to you? Because they've expressed that by keeping quiet. But I got to talk to you, Joe. I've got to talk to you. I know it wouldn't grieve you. I know I have access to you. And I would like to say this. Then we get into his problem. If it's not thy fear of God, your what? Your confidence. And the integrity of thy ways, thy hope. Now it says, remember, I pray thee, whoever perish being innocent. Now what's the jab? What's he saying? We know you're a man of integrity, but it's your integrity that's your hope. And it's because of who you think you are. And you think you're a man of integrity and the fear of God that's inserted. And thy fear is thy confidence. You act like you're a holy man. But I've never seen anybody perish and being innocent. Something is happening to you, Job. Your wife said you wish you were dead. You've been wishing you're dead. And it may be you're not as great as you think you are. He's staying with his integrity. His words of dealing with the trouble that he has been upright and honorable, excellent. But he said, there's got to be something wrong. And he said, this is my experience. Not that I have the teachings of God, but it's my experience. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent. So here you've got a great book preserved for us that when the righteous suffer, and who perished being innocent in history? Jesus Christ. John the Baptist. Here were people that would, and history will indeed do that, but it's your situation here that is usually the case, and therefore it must be the case with you. Sometimes it happens, and therefore I'm going to say, I know this, and from my experience, I think you're a sinner. I want to double down on you, Job. According as I have seen, my experience, I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. Is there any truth to that? Oh, I've got Galatians 6 over here. You sow to the flesh, of the flesh, you reap what? Corruption. They're sowing and reaping. What is Eliphaz? Let's talk about tearing up the ground, plowing. Sowing and reaping. Get the whole picture. And what happens that what your actions are, you'll pay for that. And there is some truth to that. But from my experience, it must always be true in all things. You got a problem now, with Job, and they don't get it. They don't have the humility to hope that you and I have. I pray for discernment and how I apply to scriptures. David.
Job is already feeling, the blow of kingdom was possible. They are the brother he saw who just fed the Lord.
Yeah.
And later on in the last part of Job, last chapter, God basically said what you guys said before. And so since you said work the same, you're going to have to make sacrifice.
That's right. And so that's why he's not sympathetic to him. And he expresses it. Look at what he does about the lions. Verse 10, the roaring of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lions, what have they're broken. The old lion perisheth for lack of prey, and the whelps of the lioness are scattered abroad. This is what I have seen. And by the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger are they consumed. And the great beast of the jungle, sometimes they lose their teeth, they get old. There's somebody, they're roaring of a lion like Job. You're roaring with your integrity. And your hope is all about you being right with God. There's just something wrong about that, Job. My experience says you reap what you sow. And that's his experience, and that's the revelation from God in Galatians 6. Be careful how you apply God's word. And I've got it there, but this problem, what happens when the righteous suffer? What answers do I have then? And it may be far between and not very much. Any questions on that? What experience did Eliphaz rely on that answered the problem of Job's sufferings? I gave you example of that. Plowing, you're reaping what you sow. Anything other thoughts you'd like to add to that you might have? All right. Question number 7. Eliphaz's experience was true, false, or too rigid? Let's pass judgment on Eliphaz for a moment. Was he lying as he spoke? Well, he spoke some truth. Was it totally false? He had some truth in it. Was it a little too rigid for the moment? You ever done that? Lash out? Not knowing where the other person's coming from? Give me discernment of my knowledge, and I will learn a lot from this book. Yes, sir.
Not only was it too rigid, it was too limited.
And what do you mean by that?
It means that probably he may not have known anybody
Yes.
that was righteous that had done it. He probably saw people that he obviously knew were evil get their just rewards.
Yeah.
He took that to be the full extent. Like I said, there is some truth into it, but like I said, his experience is limited, and some of that is too rigid.
That's right. All right. Now, we're going to look at this vision. I don't have time to go to it. This would be a great time. You just spend some time and put yourself in listening to Eliphaz. And he's a drama queen. he's going to create some drama for you. And what's it all about? He said, I have a vision. I've received a vision. Now, we're going to get closer to God all the time with this is God behind it. It's been my experience, but now I've got a vision. And how does he takes verse after verse after verse after verse to create the atmosphere. I want to know how you, and we'll talk about this next time, Lord willing, you paint the atmosphere for me, how it made you feel before we get to the point that what the issue is. And maybe that would be a good exercise in your private study, and then we'll pick up and move through these first 7 chapters pretty quickly. Any other comments you might have? Okay, thank you very much.